We'll now call this meeting to order. I will take attendance first. If you want to raise your hand or declare your presence when I call your name. And Wendy has sent her regrets. Bill Curry. Jacqueline Grimes.
Present.
Bill Widmeyer.
Here.
Jack Anderson.
Here.
Councillor Jay Brennan.
Present.
Senior Planner Carl Grinke.
Here.
Planning Coordinator Mary Remig.
Present.
Item number 2 on the agenda, approval of agenda. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Bill, seconded by Jack. All in favor? Carried. Item number 3, adoption of minutes. Planning Advisory Committee meeting, April 22nd, 2021. Can I have a motion? Jay?
Well, they look fine to me, so I'll move the motion.
Jay already moved it.
Then I'll second it.
All right. All in favor? Carried. Disclosure of monetary interests. We don't have a public meeting, so we'll go right to item number 6. Priority issues. Report PAC-21-08, application SP-21-10, Percy and Lyra. Carl.
Hello, everyone. I'm just bringing forward for the committee's consideration and review a new site plan application that we've received. So I think quite recently, you'll recall we hosted a public meeting and you supported a zoning amendment application for the property at the corner of Percy, Lyra, and Ross Street. So that's, well, there are actually 2 applications then, a consent to adjust the lot lines and a zoning application to recognize the or to rezone from R1 to R5 to accommodate townhouse rental townhouse developments. So what's being presented to you now is pretty similar in concept, a little more detailed, of course, than what was presented back then. But the idea is the same. They're looking at a total of 16 townhouse units across 4 buildings on 2 lots. They'll have shared driveways on Percy Street, and they're arranging for servicing to largely connect to the end of Bell Street, with stormwater management to be addressed with sort of infiltration areas to the rear. So this is a very new application. We've circulated it to review to our colleagues in other departments and agencies. We don't have all of that feedback back yet, so we don't have preliminary comments back to the applicant. So I think the PAC, this falls in a good time. This falls like the Tim Hortons site plan last time. This falls very conveniently on the review calendar. It gives you an opportunity to have an early look at what's being provided and provide any sort of comments and suggestions that you may have. So we've just through a very, very preliminary overview. Again, I haven't gotten into the details just yet. We will be looking for a staff recommending enhanced facade treatments for the sides of the end units facing Lyra and Ross Street. So perhaps wrapping some of that brick around those exterior yards if possible. And also looking for additional details on screening, fencing, and vegetation retention along the rear lot line facing the folks on the backyards on Lyra Street. I'm also going to be recommending the inclusion of landscaping details and trees along the Percy Street frontage. One question that I did have in this through this process, and certainly I'll be looking for the committee's direction, is the question of whether we need a sidewalk along that block of Percy Street. So Percy Street is a collector street. It's not a very busy collector street, but it is collector nonetheless. There's a sidewalk on the other side of the road, obviously a school nearby, some local commercial development, but predominantly we're looking at single family residential development. So the town is undertaking an active transportation master plan right now. We've actually just launched the RFP for that in the last couple of weeks, and we're hoping that what comes out of that plan is some detailed prescriptive policy direction that's going to help us answer these questions about where and when we need sidewalks or any other sort of active transportation facilities. But in the meantime, in the absence of that, we work with the Public Works Department on these cases on a case-by-case basis to assess the need. So this afternoon, I received feedback from our engineering technologist in consultation with the Director of Public Works that have provided an opinion that based on the traffic counts that we're seeing here on Percy Street, the surrounding land uses and the anticipated, I guess, evolution of development over the next while in this area, the recommendation from the Public Works Department is that they're not looking for a sidewalk on that side of Percy Street. So this is something that I would be looking for the committee's direction on as we provide our first round of comments and ultimately take a recommendation to council when it's ready to go there. So at this point, we do have a site plan application. There's a fair amount of detail proposed, a little bit of detail we're still looking for, and I'll open the floor to comments, suggestions, and feedback from the Planning Advisory Committee.
Well, it seems to me that if the engineering department has studied this and come to the conclusion that there's no real need for a second sidewalk, then why would we not accept their recommendations?
Jane? Thanks, Bill.
I would agree with that. There's no traffic there's no traffic study, Carl, attached to this or required.
That's correct. Public Works did not identify the need for a traffic study based on the scale of development and existing traffic patterns in the location.
Okay. Albeit it is close to a school and there is, at certain times of the day there is traffic. However, if you had a sidewalk there, it would be, as we would say, a sidewalk to nowhere, because there's no other sidewalk running down towards Broadview or past that, past Ross Street. There's no side. There's one sidewalk on one side, and in the past few little while, I'll give an example, which is not a high traffic area, which would be Condi Street. It was redeveloped, and one side of it's been done, and it was replaced with one sidewalk. And we just did actually this morning the tender for the other side. I think that would be the west side of Cornelia, and there's no sidewalk attached to that. So in normal practices, through the advice of the Director of Public Works, it's unless that really warrants it, we redevelop with one sidewalk on one side, and I don't disagree with this one.
Thanks, Jay. Jack?
The full extent of this development is going to be 16 units. Pardon me, and I believe they're starting off with 8. Being so close to 2 schools, I would think that, if you could possibly know that the people who are going to be tenants there had school children, I would look at it differently. But again, there's no way of knowing that, of course. And I think other arrangements would have to be made if indeed the a certain high extent of the rentership there had children. We'd have to take a look at other measures, not our committee, but as far as safety and access to the schools.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, that actually would be a matter for the traffic advisory committee, in my opinion. And actually, we're looking for new members on that particular committee. So anyone that's here is interested in joining it, you'd be more than welcome.
Thanks, Jay.
Pardon me. I can't remember where this information came from, but on Ross Street to the west of Percy Street, there are supposedly no parking signs to be erected there. Again, this doesn't enter into this, but it's just one more, perhaps calming procedure that is being undertaken.
But there's no sidewalks on Ross running from Percy to Brockville.
From Percy to Brockville, no, well, on the south side of Ross Street between Lyra and Percy, there's a sidewalk there. On the south side on Ross Street. There isn't on the north side of, see, the fact that Lyra Street
No
comes from-
properties, there's
but
no
we're looking
properties
at-
face onto Ross.
Pardon me?
There's no properties that face onto Ross Street.
No, not on the north side. I said the south side is where the sidewalk is.
Well, I didn't think there was any.
Yes, there is.
Anyone else? Jacqueline?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I guess just to give a little bit of context, when we ran into this last time, I had to declare a conflict of interest on Ferrara, where this issue came up before with a sidewalk. Now, was it deemed that that one was important because of the high volume of traffic, and that's the difference? And why one's needed there and not needed here?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes, it was a common, Mr. Chair, it was a combination of the high traffic as well as high intensity commercial uses close by that would be walked to.
Okay. Just to give reference to when we've experienced this before, right? So recently.
No, good question.
Anything more? So are you looking for a motion, Carl, to proceed with this from us, or?
Well, I think certainly the committee's direction or committee's recommendation on the sidewalk is one thing I'm looking for from you, but also any other feedback or suggestions on the site plan as a whole.
Well, did you get Wendy's concerns? Like, she sent them to me. One of them was the sidewalk.
Yes.
The other one was the number of trees.
Yes, so that is one thing that that has been. Yeah, I did get the email from Councillor Alford, and that's one thing I identified in my preliminary review as well. Is that I'd be looking for trees along the front along Percy Street. So that would be a comment that we provide back. So I'm pleased to see there is some vegetation proposed along along Ross and Lyra Street frontages, but along the front and then again along the back, I think I'd like to see.
Yeah, there is
along
some
the landscape.
already showing there.
Mhm.
But they've also shown some trees that are going to have to be removed anyways.
Oh, yes, and most of the trees that are on that site right now are elm or ash that are either dead or will be shortly.
On their way out.
Yeah.
But in my experience with other townhouse developments in town, usually developers are able to accommodate trees in the front yard. They don't have a lot of room. They're not going to be large trees, but there's a lot of smaller cultivars like service berries. I know the Kevlar development, they've had a few that I've never seen before, actually, some kind of neat planting plan. So there's definitely, and I know I've had those discussions with Parkview as well. So usually there's the ability to get smaller trees in front of at least some of these townhomes, and I would definitely encourage that through the site plan as well.
So do you need a motion or not?
A motion would be excellent if the committee's prepared for one.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
So what do you want? How do you want it worded, Carl?
Well, I think in this case, the certainly if the committee is prepared to make a motion in support of the site plan as submitted, subject to to final technical details being resolved in consultation with staff, I think that would be helpful.
Okay,
Then so moved.
moved by Bill, seconded by Jack. All in favor? Carried. Okay, I'll move on to the next item, number 7, correspondence. We don't have any. Item number 8, project updates. Comprehensive zoning bylaw review. Carl?
So this is going to be fun. Our RFP just closed for a new comprehensive zoning bylaw, and that's a massive undertaking. It's I'm looking forward to it being done. As you know, we have an old zoning bylaw. It's been has a variety of amendments over the last 30 years, but we've gotten some interest from consultants on that. We're going to be taking a staff recommendation to council on a recommended bidder on the 25th. But this is of course this will be of keen interest to the Planning Advisory Committee, and certainly as it moves along and in the future when we're working with the new zoning bylaw. But one of the things that the successful bidder will be doing in the next little while is working with stakeholders and just letting you know that we'll be reaching out to the Planning Advisory Committee in the next little while just to act as a bit of a steering committee and provide advice from time to time on that project. I think you're more familiar and work with the bylaw quite closely, and we welcome your feedback, and whoever our consultants are going to welcome your feedback as well. So we'll have more information on that in the coming weeks and at the next PAC meeting.
Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, that's great, Carl. You know, I just mentioned the Traffic Advisory Committee and the Active Transportation Plan. The RFP went out for that, as you mentioned, and they'll be reaching out to that committee as well. I don't know if the Planning Committee or would there be an applicable comments from the Planning Committee on the Active Transportation Plan as well?
That's good. Good question, Councillor. I'll reach out to Vanessa in Public Works. I think she's spearheading that, and I'll look to get that link made. I think that would be very helpful since it's pretty topical. I think we deal with that pretty often here. So
Great.
Anything else?
well, that's the key one. We will be moving back to a 5 o'clock meeting in June. I'm expecting 2 minor variance applications, so we will have public meetings for June.
Okay.
Any questions on the zoning?
No.
If I can give the committee just a quick heads up, a couple of the key things that we need to look at in the zoning that we've identified are parking, updating our parking standards, and updating our housing provisions in the bylaw as well. I think there's a keen interest in making it easier to do